Tennessee hasn't won a national championship in over 25 years, and as a Kentucky fan, I'm okay with that, but I'm still going to attempt to fix the Volunteers in NCAA football anyway, because you all have been begging me for this rebuild for over a year now. In order to consider myself successful, I will have to complete all 6 of these challenges, while also only playing in 3 regular season games a year, which isn't going to be easy with the newly aligned SEC, and it means I have to actually turn around this current roster, which only has a few really good players. Now, I'm only giving myself 5 seasons to complete all of these challenges, and if I fail even one of them, I'll be giving away a copy of the new game to a random commenter whenever it drops, so I better lock in and also learn how to pronounce our starting quarterback's last name. I think I'm just gonna call him Nico because saying Iame Lava a ton is gonna drive me nuts, and any freshman on this roster that I redshirt this season would be on our team in year number 5. That's a big thing to keep in mind as I start to search for some prospects, and I love using Fang's recruiting mod for all of these high overall prospects, but there's only one of them that wants to come to our school. Even though James Hardy is supposed to be really good, it's never a guarantee that he'll actually be, and every so often you will find a high overall, but there's also a lot more players that bust. As for our schedule, I'm going to do my best to keep it as realistic as possible, and beginning as an 84 overall team isn't the worst thing in the world. That's very important because during the course of this 5-year rebuild, we have to have a winning record versus Alabama, and there's no reason that this Tennessee team should be projected to finish 39. At least we seem to be in a decent position with recruiting though if we can compete for any of these players like this 92 overall defensive tackle, because that could knock off signing an 88 overall prospect in year 1, and I don't think NC State should give us any issues here in week 1, but they beat us by 4. Nico's gonna have to play a lot better than he did here, and the new SEC makes things so much harder. I was kinda hoping that we could make LSU our visit week, but it looks like there's only a few players that could come then, so what we're probably gonna do is skip over this one as well and just hope that we come out on top. Just looking at our schedule, I think we're gonna make Georgia the actual visit week and then also hop into the Alabama game, while making sure we beat Vanderbilt or Kentucky to finish the year, so anything up until that point we have to sim, and I don't think we would have beaten the Sooners even if I hopped into this one, so I'm glad it was at least close. We're starting to see a little bit of development out of our sophomore QB, but these schools are running away with our top 3 prospects, and we cannot let Auburn get this guy. I'm going to schedule the visit week for week 6 against Georgia, but he wouldn't even last another week without becoming a Tiger, so that really stinks. Now we're probably not going to sign an 88 plus recruit this season, and even though Terrence Mobley's an 82 overall quarterback, his stats don't look like they're great. I think I'm just going to have to start scouting the players that most of the schools are no longer going after, and most of the time with Fang's recruiting mod, these players just end up busting as well, so I don't think we're going to find much talent. Fortunately for us though, there was a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, because after we get by all of these bad low overalls, I did find a 94 kicker, and this kid from Idaho could be our 88 plus recruit. Now unfortunately for us, this roster does have us as a lower overall than most teams in the SEC, so we might drop another game before we get to our Georgia one, which is going to be visit week, and I'm just thankful that Chattanooga's on the schedule, because an FCS school at home should equal an easy win, and we didn't pull a Michigan. By the time our matchup against the Bulldogs has rolled around, we really need to make sure that we come out on top, because we have not gotten off to a good start, but if we could somehow win out, this would still give us a chance at maybe making the SEC championship, and you know the simulations haven't been accurate whenever Vanderbilt's sitting at 4-1. That could even turn into a tough game for us later in the year, and we just have to hope for the best here at our home stadium. Nico hasn't been able to get us onto the board yet, and on this 3rd and 10 we are going to fall a bit short, but we're going to be aggressive going for it on 4th and 3, and that is going to be brought in by Squirrel White. I really want to get more than just a field goal out of this drive, but we stood no chance on a 4th and 1, and the Bulldogs might not have made for a great visit week if we're not able to put up even a decent fight versus them. This needs to be picked off, but all we could do is swat it down, and now we're trailing by 10. Beating the number 5 team in the country though would do a ton for this recruiting class, except we just fumbled it away, and hopefully this time down inside the red zone we don't make this same type of mistake. They're saying we crossed the line there, so we got 7 points, but to end the half I think they're going to get another field goal, and our defense has done their best to keep us in this one. The second I say that, they give up another touchdown, but we should be able to respond back here, and James Pierce Jr. has been doing an amazing job whenever it comes to generating pressure. Now they're throwing it into double coverage, but it is another dropped interception. Those are starting to really hurt us in this game, and I have to hope that even if we can't pick up this 3rd and long, we're at least in field goal range, but we get it. If we're going to get some of the recruits that I really want to land, we have got to figure out how to come out on top, but headed into the 4th quarter, we're not doing great, so Nico's going to have to come up big time for us, and that is a great pass. Dante Thornton Jr. is by far the best wide receiver that we have, and I'm going to keep throwing it to him. On 3rd down, they are going to get it though, so their drive stays alive and Smokey is not happy. Sooner or later, they're going to start chewing clocks, so we have got to get them off the field at some point, but we have failed to do so again, and here on 1st and 10, they had way too much time. I'm fully expecting them to run the ball here, but they did not do that, and we only have 2 minutes left in this game now. We better score quick, but we couldn't get it out. It is 4th and 4, and it looks like they're going with a cover 3, but I am gonna fumble it away. They've picked it up, and I should have just forced it. This rebuild's genuinely proving to be a big challenge so far, but we're only in year 1, so we have a lot of time to improve, and we would pick up quite a few useful signings, like a few offensive linemen and this strong safety. We'd also hop into the lead on these 4 players, and it's really important that we get this tackle, because I think he'd be our best offensive lineman going into next year, and I wish the SEC wasn't so hard. Even Auburn's doing good, sitting at 4-1, so we're probably going to lose this game in Sim 2, and there's absolutely zero reason that this Tennessee team should be sitting at the bottom of the SEC. At this rate, we might even lose to South Carolina, so I'm actually going to step into this one, because I have to prevent the rest of this year going farther downhill. We have some winnable games on the back end of our schedule, but we have to get there first, and after converting that 4th down, our team's confidence should be through the roof. They have forced us to a 3rd and goal though, where we are going to find Thornton, and I told you all he was going to be our number 1 target all year. I'm going to double down on that, looking in his direction again, but he was not open, so we found Squirrel White instead, and if we could get a stop here, this would be a perfect first quarter. We're currently on pace to run away with it, but we haven't scored since, so with 4 minutes left, it is all tied up, and I wonder if we should even go for it on 4th and 2. It's probably dumb to go for it here, but they would be in such a bad position, and Nico used his legs to make sure we got 6. Now it's all about whether or not we can force a defensive stop, and this halfback screen is going to get blown up, so we are very close to escaping South Carolina with a win, but they find somebody up the middle. Our defense just has to hold it down, and the blitz should have gotten in right there, but instead they complete the pass, and you have got to be kidding. I think they're going to put us in a position where we have to get at least a field goal against them, but maybe not. They went backwards with that first down play, and I could not force them to throw an interception here. I know our defense can get a stop in this situation. We've done stuff like that in the past, but we can't have any soft coverage, and they seriously just ran the ball here. As long as we don't take a safety, this one is over, and it feels good to finally win another game. Nico did all right, but he still has a lot of developing to do, because they shouldn't have come back, and now Alabama's up next. Currently, they have a spot in the SEC championship, and this is the last game that we can hop into, but it's very necessary that we do, because we have to have a winning record versus them in this rebuild. I might have made the challenges list too difficult, but that just means another copy of the game I have to give away, so you all would win in that situation, and this kick is going to be in. Ever since then, we've just traded touchdowns back and forth, so approaching halftime, we're only trailing by 4, and there's a chance that we could take a 3-point lead. Squirrel White just trucked a player, and I was not expecting to see that out of one of our smaller receivers. A missed extra point could come back to bite us though, so it would be really nice if we could find a way to reach the end zone again, and the only reason I think we even have a chance is because Jalen Milroe's hurt. The injury bug hit Alabama at the right time, as their backup quarterback is going to throw a dot, but they still have a lot of work to do to score again, and they did, putting the pressure on us again since we're only up by 2 points, and that is some good coverage. It is always stressful whenever these games come down to the wire. We should have gotten the interception there though, and they might not be in field goal range, so I'm very interested to see if they kick, as long as we're able to mark them short. They're probably making the right decision doing this, but it also means all that we need to beat them is a field goal ourselves, and I think we're going to make that happen. I'm pretty sure our kicker can hit from here, and with this Wildcat run, we are about to get a first, but Dylan Sampson didn't fight very well, so now we have to hand it off up the middle, and it's being spotted as a 4th and inches. There's no reason to take any risks. We just have to make sure there's enough power on that kick, and I didn't think we were going to beat Alabama in year number 1. I'm actually really happy that we hopped into this game now, and our season could be turning around. We're about to pick up some more commits, and that includes the 94 overall kicker I wanted. So there we go, we've already completed one of our challenges, and there's still a decent chance that we get our top 3 prospects that are still on our board. We also still have a chance to finish 7-5 because our remaining schedule really isn't difficult, with one of those teams being a 67 overall. Honestly, if we lost this one to Kent State, I would have no words, but we took them down, and next up is Vanderbilt. Ever since they had to start playing against real schools, they haven't won a single matchup, so we should remain the best team in the state of Tennessee, and that's what I was expecting. We'd also sign a few more players, so now all that's left is these 3 80+ overalls, and to end the season, we're going on the road at my Wildcats. They are the higher overall team, so they might end up taking us down, but we won, and that doesn't feel great, but I am happy that these 3 battles are going to the off-season. I actually think that it's pretty impressive how we turned things around this year, and Donovan Edwards proved why he deserved to be a cover athlete on the new game. We'd make the Birmingham Bowl, but it is against number 19 Notre Dame, so this isn't going to be an easy matchup like I was hoping for, and Nico had a pretty good sophomore season with only 6 interceptions. It would definitely be nice if the entire offense returned, including Dylan Sampson, but he could declare for the NFL draft early, and we're probably going to lose out on Dante Thornton Jr. James Pierce Jr. was also really disappointing as a 96 overall with stats like this, and I just hope that we don't lose to the Irish. The rain always makes things a lot more difficult than it should be though, so it's important that we finish off this first drive, and that is going to be caught. However, ever since then we haven't scored a single single point, and there's only so much that our defense can do as they break a tackle. I don't know why Riley Leonard's still in college, but that's frustrating, because even though our defense has played so well, our offense hasn't, and we just have to come away with this. Our receivers should be getting a lot more separation than they do, and they just got a free rusher in on third down. I think we have to go for it here on 4th and 12, and I saw the seam up the middle, but it's going to be dropped. So this one's pretty much over if they get a first down, and on 3rd and 6, they're going with the run that we stop them on. It's going to take us playing at the top of our game, but we do have a slight chance here, and that's an amazing throw. So Nico's really starting to show some of the development that we need to see out of our sophomore, and that was a bad time to take a sack, but we're going to thread the needle here, and it's knocked down. The pressure is on for the Volunteers, and these zones are always so hard to beat, but I think the most annoying part is that wasn't marked as a first down, so the clock has continued to run. There's 10 seconds left now, and we just have to hold on to the ball. That could have been the game-tying touchdown, but that was a great hit, and Notre Dame's going to beat us in this bowl game. I can't lie, I'm a little disappointed that we went 7 and 6, but what's more frustrating is juniors Dylan Sampson and James Pierce Jr. are both declaring for the NFL draft early, so we lost out on them, and there's a pretty low chance that we're able to get all 3 of these guys to commit. To my surprise though, all 3 of their names are yellow, and I was not expecting to see us sign the #1 class in the country this first year. I didn't think it was that good, but I think because we signed so many players, it had a lot of depth, and that means we've already knocked off a second challenge in this rebuild. We also somehow managed to make our quarterback room even better because this guy becomes an 84. So now we have Akeem Grossman, Terrence Mobley, and Jake Merklinger to choose between, and I won't even be upset if Nico enters the draft early. We also have athlete Eddie Ward who can play defensive tackle, and that is definitely needed. So all around, I'm pretty happy with how things are going right now, and it looks like pretty much everybody was able to progress besides our starting quarterback. Now there's actually a decent amount of pressure on him to make sure he continues to perform well, but it seems like he's going to have a really easy start to the season until he has to play against Florida. Now unfortunately for me, I've been trying to put in Fang's recruiting mod for the last hour, but it keeps on crashing this file, so from here on out in this rebuild, we're going to only be able to use the generic classes, and that means the highest overall player on our board that I'll be targeting this season's an 80 overall cornerback. Without the mods, they can't exceed an 81 overall, so that just made this rebuild even tougher, but we're only ranked 10 spots outside the top 25. I'm glad we knocked off sign an 88 plus recruit last season, but we still have a long way to go, and with a division this difficult, we can't lose any non-conference games. Now fortunately for us, they're against schools like UAB, so we should come out on top, but Syracuse on the road does worry me a little bit, because you never know if Sim's going to be in your favor or not, and you've got to be kidding. It just doesn't seem to like Nico, forcing him to throw 2 interceptions, and we really need to get some of these linebackers, but they're going to be tough battles as we're losing points on a couple. All I'm saying is we better not lose to Middle Tennessee State, and I think some of these JUCO prospects are going to be really useful additions to this team. They're kind of our backup plans in case we're not able to get the top guys on our board, which is going to be a lot of tough battles. And let's just go ahead and get this one over with. There's no reason that we should lose to them, but Florida is another story, so we are going to hop into this. There's 6 players that are already ready for a visit, so we're going to schedule them against the Gators, and this is our chance to get off to a really good start in SEC play because we're going to need it. What's good about using Tennessee is we're already in a decent spot, but I'm very afraid of the games that I can't hop into because Sim always has random results, and the challenges I've set out for us to complete are very difficult, but here on 3rd and 5, we should get the user interceptions with Turrentine, and that is an amazing play from him. Now, I don't think he's going to be quick enough to outrun number 11, but I made the play. I stuck with that wide receiver, and this is why it is so important to smartly use the few games this season that I'm able to hop into and play. We're about to have a great start to the second quarter, and we have a new starting running back because ours left to the NFL early. At least our offensive line is really good, though, because I recruited like 4 of the starters the last season, and our defense is starting to come up big. Even though it's only year 2 as an 88 overall, I think this could be a playoff team, and I'm hoping we're able to pick up this 4th and 2 where the slant route just got wide open, but we dropped the ball and the Gators get it back. They'd even tied up, so despite our great start, we now find ourselves sitting at 14 all until this, and it would be amazing if we could get them off the field on this 3rd down where Jack Miller III almost made it there. We were able to hold strong though, which is huge because we have the ball back in the 4th quarter, driving down the field, and we're continuing to move the chains. Gator fans are starting to realize that they're in a lot of trouble because even if they hold us on this 3rd down, we're already in field goal range, and that is going to be dropped. We recruited a 94 overall kicker for this reason though, and if we could close this game out, this would be an amazing result for Tennessee, beating the number 6 team in the country. We have been struggling to get them off the field on 3rd down though, so we had to make sure that our man-to-man coverage stuck on someone, and it's just not doing the job that it needs to, where we should have caught that. I know that they're probably going to score from here as they have it inside our 10-yard line, and the worst part is they still have all 3 of their timeouts, but we have an opportunity to lock up, and all of a sudden it is 4th and 6. I figured that they might take their 3 in this situation, situation, but they have decided to throw it instead, and I'm gonna challenge that catch because I don't know if he got a foot down. There's no reason not to in this situation, and if they pulled that off, that was just an amazing play from their wide receiver. It looks like he did drag that left foot. So now with 2 minutes left in the game, the pressure is on, and we are gonna recover the onside kick. All it takes is one first down behind this new freshman offensive line, and with the read option, Nico is gonna keep it, and he is gonna have plenty of green grass in front of him for the first. That's gonna seal the game. We're gonna walk away with the win, and Florida fans do not look too happy. I am though, because we had some talented recruits visiting for this game, and we were able to convince 3 of them to commit, including athlete Cedric Jones that can pretty much play anywhere. After that result, I think our next visit week is gonna be against somebody like South Carolina, and I love the fact that we have been ranked for the first time. Now we do have a problem, and that's that Georgia's up next on the schedule, but if we could somehow win this one, we'd stay tied for first place in our division in the SEC, and since the Bulldogs and the Crimson Tide are the only 2 teams ranked left on our schedule, those are going to be the 2 that I hop into. Last year, we did come up short against Georgia, but I feel like our roster got a little bit better, especially our offensive line, but approaching halftime, we're about to go down 21-0, so we have got to start playing better, and on 3rd and 11, we just have to make sure they don't pick this up, which they don't. I mean, our defense hasn't been great, but the main issue's been our offense, so I was happy when we got our first 3 points on the board, and I'm really hoping this halfback screen goes well on 3rd and 7, but I don't think we're gonna make it. We have failed multiple 4th down conversions, and I don't know why this slant just ran backwards there, but freshman Carlin Clark didn't know what he was doing, and that almost cost us getting points on this drive, but I think we're gonna figure it out. We have 3 plays to get 5 yards, and we should be able to block a little bit better. So now it's just on Nico to punch it in, and he's going to. They have driven down the field pretty quickly though, so it would be nice if we could force the turnover on 3rd down, and Georgia has been so tough to beat on this file. We do have a chance to hold them to another field goal though, and I literally just whiffed on that tackle. So that is another mistake from the Volunteers, and on 4th and 12, we need to hold on. With 3 timeouts, it's not over yet, especially since the slant is open, and somehow we got bailed out with a free touchdown. I love to sim special teams in this game, but odd things happen. So to make sure that they don't get a kickoff return on this play, I am in for it, and that might not even matter because they've still made progress driving down the field. We couldn't get the sack there, and please give me that ball. I think the computer just cheated us because we should not have missed this tackle. What is that? And then the Georgia wide receiver comes back for it and just rips it out of our corner's hands to hold on. The sooner they score, the better, so we do have a chance to respond back. But now we have an opportunity to hold them on 3rd and 1, and why is he open in the flat? I'm gonna get the interception. I couldn't even talk there, but Harrison got over to the football, and they were not going to get a touchdown on me there. I didn't leave a zone over there. I was worried, but that was an amazing user play, and we got to the football. This game is over, and with some fluky stuff happening, we're going to beat Georgia on the road. So that is a huge result for Tennessee and our chance at the playoffs, but we still have a long way to go, and it all starts here at home against Auburn, who's 5 overall is worse than us, but it doesn't matter. Stuff like that is why we're going to struggle to complete a rebuild in the SEC, but I know we play Alabama soon, and the only team in our way before that's South Carolina. We have a lot of players visiting for this game, so we needed to win there. But of course, Sim isn't on our side again, and it doesn't even matter if we beat the Crimson Tide. The worst part about it is I don't think we're going to either, but it's listed as college game day, so I have to play it. I mean, we'd still pick up a lot more signings, so it's not like anything with this recruiting class is going terribly, but there's a couple guys I really want to bring in, and we're going to have to get lucky on them like Jimmy Kendrick. In order to make the playoffs now, we'd probably have to win the rest of our games, and I know this is going to be an uphill battle on the road at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Just like when we played Georgia, they're scoring like it's nothing, while our offense has been underperforming, and they're about to get a sack, so we had to escape the pocket with Nico, but he fumbles it away and they pick it up. This legitimately might be the worst start that I have ever had to a game. It can't get much worse than this. And no matter what I do, coming back from this point is going to be extremely difficult to pull off. We're down 24-0 to a much better team, and guess who is driven down the field to start the second half? It couldn't get much worse. Our defenders aren't even reacting to their passes. They're up by 31, and I would like to act like this game never happened because we really shouldn't have lost by this much. At least we should still make another bowl game, but it's just sad how things went so badly after we beat both Florida and Georgia. And look at that, we continue to pick up more guys we need, like these linebackers. If there's one thing that I can say, it's that next season's roster should be better than the one that we have on the field this year, and dropping that game to Texas means we still haven't made ourselves bowl eligible. I mean, we play Vanderbilt next, so we should win that, but the sim engine always scares me on this game, and we dominate it. Lastly, we have to finish things off off against my Wildcats. And it looks like we have landed Matt Franklin while still being in a battle for these other 3 recruits. So we'll have a chance to get all of them to commit in the offseason, and it looks like we're going to lose by 7. Somehow Toledo's quarterback won the Heisman, and we've made the Birmingham Bowl again, this time against East Carolina. But for the 2nd year in a row, there's no way that we have any first-team All-Americans, so we're not going to knock off a single challenge in this 2nd season. Nico would also take a step back, and I don't know how that happened, because it's rare to see a quarterback regress on this game, but I guess it's because he lost his top receiving target and his top running back. We should be able to beat East Carolina though, so we have a chance to finish 7-6 again, and these are solid foundational years, but after this season, we only have 3 more years left to win it all, so we better step up things quick, and Nico is getting chased down, but he is going to have an open lane. I don't think he'll end up declaring for the NFL draft early, so that is the one benefit of him struggling this season, but he sure hasn't against East Carolina, as this one's never been close. I'm trying to get one more touchdown with him, and then we'll just go on to the offseason, where I'm hoping he actually improves a lot this time, and the halfback ankle route's wide open. After losing to Notre Dame last year, this is definitely nice, but I doubt Tennessee's going to hang up a banner for this like they would in basketball for little things, so we need to get at least a playoff appearance in the next 2 years, and we really aren't losing that many seniors or juniors because they've decided to stay back. But then I saw Nathan Leacock was leaving us this early, and I've never had 4 different players transfer out on NCAA Football 14. Imagine how frustrating that's going to be on the new college football game whenever you lose 10 to 15 players. And just like last season, I'm hoping that we're able to shoot 3 for 3 again, but we weren't that lucky, only signing 2 of those 3 guys. We still had the number 1 class for the 2nd year in a row, so I can't complain at all, but these player overalls would have been a lot higher if it was on Fang's recruiting mod, and I wish I could get it to work like I did in the first season. In all honesty though, besides these 368 overalls, this has to be one of the deepest classes that I've ever signed, and as long as I move these athletes around to the right position, we've set ourselves up nicely. I think if anything, we should be a little bit worried about our wide receiver room, because our best 2 are seniors, so we're going to move Matt Franklin over there, and then just because he has 96 speed, we're going to put Antoine Briggs over there as well, and then redshirt him this season. That would make him available for us in season 5, and Cedric Jones is going to be another free safety, but the ultimate change is getting guys like Tony Taylor over to left end, and I'm sure Trevor Luke would also be good on the edge, so he's going to play on the right side. We really need to have a good offseason of training results, so let's just hope that this goes the right way, and I want to say it was solid with 2 of our quarterbacks being up to 92 overalls, but as I scroll further down, you're going to see that there are a lot of guys that just didn't go up at all. This might be the best quarterback room I've ever had though, and I really don't know who I want to start, so I've had to take a deep look at both players' stats, and I think Grossman might have a slight edge over Nico. He's definitely younger as well, so we are going to start him, but he won't be here by season 5, so it is important that at least one of these 2 guys don't transfer out, and that means I won't be able to go after any more quarterbacks in recruiting. We do have some other team needs though, and there are some 5 stars that want to come here, so this should be another exciting class as I continue to scout through players. Now when it comes to redshirting, anybody that's a junior is going to get it, because that means that they're still going to be on this roster by season 5, and if you remember, I've recruited a lot of players that were JUCO juniors. It might hurt us short term, but I feel like we're going to continue to improve every year, and with our new starting quarterback, we're a 90 overall. If you've watched a lot of my rebuilds, you would know that that's probably a high enough overall to win a title, but we have a new face at quarterback, we play in the SEC, and Georgia is still a better team than us inside our division. Now it has been a couple of days since I last touched this rebuild, but that's because new news about the college football games come out, so by the time you're watching this, I'm sure I've already put out another video talking about what I saw whenever I was at EA. As for fixing Tennessee though, I know we have a new quarterback out there, even though he looks a lot like Nico, and that is a great throw to start this game that I decided to hop into because it would be super nice to beat a ranked team, but they're already picking off the sophomore, and that's not good. We'd respond back by picking off their quarterback and then driving down the field to the 1-yard line, but I have to limit turnovers whenever I play in this game, and it is so hard to do this after talking about college football 25. I went in with doubts whenever I played it, but I was genuinely impressed. We should have gotten the pick there, and that would lead to a field goal, but by the 4th quarter, those are the only points that they've been able to get in this game, and we're looking to close it out. It's just been a rough offensive day for both teams, but I trust Akeem Grossman to figure it out as he plays more for us, and come on. That throw was not placed where it needed to be, but this throw should make up for it, and I'm starting to feel really good about our defense because they've clamped up throughout the entire day. We might be able to make a run in the SEC this season, but we also need our offense to keep doing this, and I want to say that I made the right decision hopping into that game and helping us take down a ranked team, but the problem with that is we have a lot more on our schedule. I can only hop into 2 other games, and we still have Florida, South Carolina, and Alabama on here, so we're gonna have to simulate versus the Tigers, and that leads to a loss. Even though we had more total yards of offense, it looks like turnovers cost us the game, so to make up for it, it would be nice if we could land all the players that we're going after, and I think we have a decent chance to get every single one. Players like AJ Nichols would immediately start for us, because right now we have multiple senior linebackers linebackers that we're going to lose. We've also been gifted a chance to bounce back versus Missouri, and that would keep us in the top 25, keeping our chances of making the playoffs alive. But you never know what could happen whenever you have to simulate on the road, so I'm glad we won by a ton. Next up is at the Swamp, and I struggled with that Florida rebuild, so I'm actually very relieved how we're setting ourselves up for the future right now, because I think this one's going to go a little bit better. You can see with this entire recruiting class, I should be able to get every single prospect, and that is 13 different players that are going to make an impact for us in year 5. I think the best thing I could do is schedule them for a visit against either Georgia or Alabama, and I chose the Crimson Tide because we're going to have to play the number 5 team in the country either way, but the rest of our division's also doing well. That means no matter what, we can't blow this, because if we do, our chances at making the playoffs are going to be ruined. We already know that Sim isn't on our side, but this one hasn't gone particularly well for us either, so we need our defense to hold it down on 3rd and goal, and that is what they should do. For a split second there, I was a bit worried, but now I'm fine, and it looks like Georgia beat Alabama. With the Crimson Tide already losing 2 games, they might not be as good as I thought, and that coverage stuck to us. So it's 3rd and 12, Florida got another field goal to go up by 6, and we're just going to take the check down to get the first. I know with the clips I show, it probably looks like I never run the ball, but I promise I still do. And because of Cameron Seldon, we're about to go up by 1. Notice how much better our defense plays too whenever I'm the one that actually steps into these games. They are going to be short on this, and I could not tell you why that wide receiver just ran backwards, but he set a record at the same time. In a couple of months though, we won't have to deal with stuff like that. We will have a realistic game, and ever since we didn't pick up that 3rd down, things have started to go downhill for us. It would be super nice if we could at least stop them on this 2-point conversion though, and they have so much time back there in the pocket. I can only guard things for so long, so it might feel like we're starting to collapse, but there's still a few minutes left in this game, and Cameron Seldon is going to get us a first. I mean, our schedule is just tough. We play in the SEC. There's not really any easy ones on it, so that's why these 5-year rebuilds can be difficult, but we are going to get the tutty, and our defense better lock in, because if they get into field goal range, we're in a ton of trouble. We should have stopped them, but their quarterback evaded the pressure to get a few yards, and they're still short on 3rd down. I am going to call a timeout here because it's going to force them to punt us the ball, and look at the Swamp. This environment is already crazy on NCAA Football 14, but when you see it on College Football 25, your jaws are going to drop. It might sound like I'm sucking EA at this point, but after seeing that game, I am so pumped up for it. That's a good move. And I'm sure I've mentioned it multiple times now, but there were many things I was concerned about. The fact that the devs cleared all of it up makes me feel way more reassured. And NCAA Football 14 has definitely done this channel and all of us well, but I'm ready for a new thing. I already know exactly what I need to do here to kick a game-winning field goal against them, and it's just stuff like that where I know they're not going to ice the kicker if I don't stop the clock prior to it, and we're going to hit this one. The new feel, the new environment, the new gameplay is going to be so much fun. But for the next month and a half, this is the playground that I have to work with, and if we lost to an FCS school in year 3, I wouldn't even know what to say. We do have a problem though, because Alabama's lost 2 conference games, and South Carolina and Georgia are on top of the standings, so now I have to pick between these 3 games, and I can only choose one of them to hop into, which really stinks because we're not going to win all of them in Sim. Just because we have made it our visit week, I think we have to choose the Alabama one, but by the time we get there, there's no telling what our record might be, and against number 14 Georgia, we lose. I'm hoping we can bounce back on the road at Auburn. It looks like we are going to win by 10, but this one against South Carolina is the one that scares me. Just like us, they've dropped out of the top 25, and we're both receiving votes, but they're a part of this 6-way tie for 2nd place in the SEC, and I have never seen it this balanced before. Even my Wildcats are ranked, which adds another difficult game to our schedule, but we have to get there in the first place, and here against the Gamecocks, we won by 7. It looks like Grossman hasn't been playing for us though. It's actually Nico that's starting, so he must have gotten hurt at some point, but he's no longer on the injury report. We might be struggling because I'm stubborn and didn't start the senior, but if so, that's on me, and this one game against Alabama could put us back into the playoff hunt. I'm going to keep it at 12 teams on this file throughout the entire rebuild, but we're back up to number 22, and this is a big matchup for one of our challenges. During the 5-year rebuild, we have to have a winning record versus the Crimson Tide, and they've driven all the way down the field to score a touchdown. It took them almost no time to do that against us, and they've been able to score on every drive in this first half, but we're still not out of the game until we just threw that interception on the comeback route. I figured one of our best receivers was going to create separation, but he didn't, and we have struggled to come back from the deficit throughout this entire day. He was able to get open on that play, but we're still behind by 10, and I can't stress enough how huge a 3rd and 11 stop would be right here, which they aren't picking up. I know there's only 3 minutes left, but we still have all of our timeouts remaining, which makes a comeback possible, and plays like that look so unrealistic. Those are the things I'm starting to notice now that I've played the new game. We would eventually score, but we still have to kick it off and then get a stop versus their offense, and that's really really the big thing that we need to have a comeback, but we force a fumble on the kickoff, and Jeremy Kendrick was able to recover it. I cannot believe how lucky we just got. That is incredible. We are going to win because all we have to do is run through the rest of this clock and then score a touchdown against them. And how crazy is that one forced fumble put us in the playoffs? I really think a win here is going to leapfrog us up to like number 12 in the country, and Caleb Webb was able to fall into the end zone. This is such a huge result as well because now we're going to be 2-1 against Alabama in this rebuild. We're getting another pick, and freshman Jeremy Kendrick should win player of the game for that performance. He probably isn't going to, but either way our fans are going to be happy, and it looks like it was our quarterback that took it. I forgot it was visit week 2, which means pretty much every single player committed, and I've been putting together some of my best recruiting classes ever during this rebuild using Tennessee. I mean, some of these player overalls are just nuts to see, and we're also in the lead for the highest one, AJ Nichols. There is no way that this isn't a championship team by year 5, but it looks like we didn't get much respect in the polls, only going up to number 20, so that is a little concerning, but if Georgia loses 2 more games, we'd make the SEC championship. Now, it probably won't happen since their 2 conference games are Auburn and South Carolina, but we'll see where things stand by the time we get to week 14 on the road at my Wildcats, and I refuse to believe that we'd have any issues with Vanderbilt at this point. Well, I see a lot of finalists for national awards and a Heisman, so you'd think that things were going well, but we're still not in the top 12. Additionally, Georgia didn't lose to those SEC schools, but Kentucky dropped 1, so they're not ranked, and that means we should come out on top of this. Before we have to sim it though, I should mention that we secured the 81 overall recruit, and a win right here is how we lock in our spot in the college football playoffs, but we lose by 3. It's not like Akeem Grossman played bad either. He had an amazing stat line, but I guess that means that only one thing can be true, and there really is no place like Lexington, Kentucky. I don't know what to do with this, but I did get it from the EA event, so I think it's just going to be chilling in the background for a bit, and it's really hard for me to get upset about my Kentucky Wildcats being good in this dynasty. They did just ruin our playoff hopes, relegating us to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, but it's against a 6-6 FSU team, so we should win that with ease, getting double-digit wins for the first time. Also, I am a little bit surprised to see other 3-loss teams make the playoffs like number 7 West Virginia and number 10 Wisconsin, but the ranking logic in this game is broken. And who was our Heisman finalist? I could have sworn that I saw that we had one, so it was probably Akeem Grossman at some point, because stat-wise it wasn't like Cameron Seldon had insane numbers, and the same was true for our number 1 wide receiver, so it had to be our QB. We also didn't win a single award, even though we had finalists for a lot of them, but I'd assume we had at least one first-team All-American because we haven't had one yet, and we didn't. That means we still have all this to complete with just 2 seasons left, and that's why having a 90 overall team isn't good enough. It might be in other conferences, but it isn't in the SEC, and this is the bowl game that I got to attend this year, watching Kentucky lose to Clemson, so it's really cool to play it. I was right behind these players on the field, and I literally watched the final seconds from like right here. If you saw my second channel vlog, you would have seen it. And between that experience, the EA one, and everything else you all have put me through in the last year, I'm probably just gonna start thanking you all in like every single video because you have put me in an amazing position. I seriously can't thank you all enough. I would have never predicted all this, but now I'm just the guy that rebuilds NCAA football teams for a living and also throws a lot of dumb passes. We have a chance to go up by 14 points with 2 minutes left in this first half, and our best wide receiver just held onto that ball when he shouldn't have, so it's safe to say he's going to be greatly missed next season when we don't have him. Akeem Grossman has already started to set records though, which is very impressive, and how do you break Peyton Manning's as a sophomore? At one point it looked like we were going to do the Seminoles just like Georgia did this year in their bowl game, but they ended up putting up a pretty respectable fight, forcing some turnovers, which wouldn't get them a win, but it avoided a lot of embarrassment. Sometime in the next 2 years though, we have to win a championship, and I still can't believe this dude broke Peyton Manning's record. It's a good thing he can't leave for the NFL draft early, but a few of our juniors are, including our 2 cornerbacks that we really need. At the same time, this freshman corner is also transferring out, so we just lost 4 DBs because we also had a senior free safety that got drafted. The only thing that makes up for it is, for whatever reason, we have hired Steve Sarkisian as our offensive coordinator, so we should be able to score like 100 points a game, and I don't think there's any chance that anybody had a higher recruiting class than we did. Well, I guess I'll be surprised. It is Nebraska that's coming in at number 1, even though they're going to go 6-6 again, and I didn't realize how much talent we lost. If these guys don't have a good offseason, we're in trouble. Getting all these athletes honestly saved us too, because I can just put them over at corner, and that's going to fix the issue of us having a shortage at that position. Another thing I'm a little confused by is Caleb Herring's been playing as a middle linebacker, but when I move him over to defensive end or tackle, he goes up a ton. So that's what I did, and I think we're going to put Hunter Stokes over as a left outside linebacker. Lastly, we got this kid Daryl Fields that's probably never going to see the field for us, but I threw him at quarterback anyway, and we'll see how all of our boys progress. I'm not going to act like it's perfect, since one of the biggest players that shot up is our backup quarterback that's not going to start for us, but we're still in a pretty good position, and just because I disrespected Nebraska fans, I am going to put them on our schedule again. I think it's a real life matchup anyway, and if there's any seniors I can redshirt, I would, but there aren't, and because most of our team needs are met, who we recruit doesn't really matter. The only position that we have to go after for next season's roster is a punter, and even if we do land some of these guys, they're probably not going to start for us, which is kind of nuts to think about. Right now, we're sitting at a 90 overall just like last season, but after that, we're supposed to be even better, projected to be the number 2 and then the number 1 team. So surely Sim will treat us right in one of these final 2 seasons, as we're projected to be the 9th best team. And this is where we'll really see how difficult the SEC can be, because Georgia's a 95 overall. You already know that I'm guaranteed to hop into that one now, and against Arkansas, we just dropped 55. This is a great start to the year for Akeem Grossman, throwing for 4 tutties, and even though LSU already lost, they're favored in the next week. I don't know why they would be, but it looks like Kentucky's good again, and this won't be an easy road game at Death Valley. The good thing about still playing 14 though, is this game's going to be nowhere as difficult as it would be in the new one, so even though we've had to use our backup quarterback throughout the entire day, going into halftime we should have a lead, and I'm not sure if we should go for it on 4th and 3 or not. I think I am going to do it, but I could live to regret this, and Lewis is able to pick up the first. But the reason that Akeem Grossman's not out there is because he strained his Achilles. This is good for Jake Merklinger though, because most likely he's going to be our starter at QB next season, so he's getting some experience now and we punch it in. It would also be really nice if we could keep getting stops, and that's what we've done in the 3rd quarter, but the LSU defense is pretty solid themselves, so I'm just glad that we're going to be short now. We should have definitely picked up that first, but our wide receiver ran backwards, so now it's 3rd and 8 and we are going to get over to the flat. Compared to what happened in the first 2 quarters, this 3rd quarter has been a lot lower scoring, but maybe we could come away with a good kick return here. Glover does the back juke, and it looks like he doesn't have the speed to get around everybody. I feel like I always end up in these 3rd and long situations as well, but we are going to hold on to the football. So this drive continues, and it looks like we are going to take down number 14 LSU. Peyton Lewis is our new starting running back this season, and so far he's looked pretty good on the ground. But with an offense like the one that we have, there's a good chance that we're just going to pass most of the game, and even with a backup quarterback, we are still having success. From there, we would just close it out to get the win, and I gotta say, I'm very happy with how the team looks in Season 4, but I know we still have a very long season ahead of us, and I talked a little bit of crap about Nebraska, so I'm hoping I don't have to bite my tongue here, which I don't. Grossman came back into the starting lineup, and he had as many touchdowns as incompletions, so I'd like to think that our offense could continue to carry us with this schedule, but there's a lot of tough teams that we still are going to have to face. I can only hop into 2 more, and Auburn, Georgia, and Alabama are all good, along with Florida too, so we're going to have to simulate against a couple of them like the Gators, and I'm pretty confident in how we're going to do, so I'm going to schedule everybody for a visit against them. I mean, we're the number 5 team in the country. We also probably have one of the best offenses in the country too, and look at that, we scored a ton. I don't see how Akeem Grossman won't be in the Heisman running after some of these performances, because he's been going off, but he still isn't up here on this list. Alabama and Auburn are both still undefeated in conference play as well, so we have 4 top 10 teams in our division, and I don't know what to do here because I have to simulate at least one of these games. I mean, even if we do pick up 1 loss, we should still make the playoffs, so I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world, and we have signed 3 of these 80 overall prospects and a punter already. Normally, anytime you see a recruit that's an 80 overall or higher, it's very hard to land them, but we've put Tennessee in a really good place, so that's probably why we're starting to have so much success in recruiting. I also wish I could talk about what it's like on the new game, because I did see that at EA, but there's certain things that are going to have to wait until they announce it, and I have to respect that. We also can't ignore the fact that Georgia just pinned us back inside the 5-yard line, so we're going to have to take the corner route to get out of there. And I know this team's the same overall as last year's, but it feels like it is so much better. Grossman's taken a huge step forward, but I better get used to sliding if you all have seen anything about wear and tear. That's a feature that I'm sure EA's announced by now, and we're going to get the interception. That's going to be big, with it being none other than Kendrick, who's always been good for us. We have a chance to go up 14-0 here, and Grossman is going to escape the pocket, throw it on the run, but Matthews just tried to make a one-handed grab, and I don't know what he was thinking. It is raining out, buddy. It's going to be pretty hard to bring it in. This was the one team that I was worried about taking on, so it's nice that we're having success so far, but I've got to get the ball out a little bit quicker, and their man-to-man coverage worked. It is 3rd and goal from the 20-yard line. We're literally throwing up a 50-50 ball. I swerved out of the way, and that was a masterclass of collapsing. I think that one mistake could cost us as well, because with a minute and a half left, we're still only up by 1 possession on the Bulldogs, and if we would have gotten even 3 on that drive, we'd be sitting perfectly fine right now. They're playing this smart too. They're not spiking the ball like the computer normally would, and they're picking this up. So it's on our defense to make the big play, helping us get the win on the road at Georgia, where they're again going to miss the tackle twice. What is our defense doing 3 times now? They were literally right next to him the entire time. And I'm not proud of the fact that we're choking. I've got to lock in. I was right there. How did we not get the pick? This is not good, but normally whenever teams get inside our 10-yard line, I'm able to come away with a defensive stop. So I'm just going to have to hope that we can do the same here, and we are getting out to their runner. I don't have time to set up the defense that I would want to in this situation though, so we got to bring down their quarterback. He's going to break 1 tackle. And here on 4th and goal, I'm stuck on a defensive lineman. He's going to try to scramble, and you've got to be kidding. With 6 seconds left, Walter Smith walks it in. And I don't think there's anything we can do. I mean, Arthur Glover does have 97 speed, but we have to make sure this return goes well for us, and I messed it up right there, except he breaks a tackle, and there's just 1 player to beat. That also ran off all of the time, so I collapsed. This one's on me. We should not have lost to Georgia, but because we did, we fall into number 11 in the polls, and both Auburn and Alabama are still on top of our conference standings. I should have known it was going to be hard to do a rebuild in the SEC, but we've signed the number 1 class a couple of times, and we're still not favored even being at home. I almost feel like we shouldn't be simming this, but I need to save the last game that we can hop into for Alabama, and I can't believe that we just threw for 6 touchdowns, 400 yards, and our defense still gave up more points. That is actually disgusting, even if it doesn't drop us far in the polls. And with a conference like this, it's kind of impressive that Kentucky's holding their own, unlike some of the other schools. I mean, ones like South Carolina just aren't good. So at least I can feel confident simming this one going into week 9 against Bama, but we have to win this or we're probably out of the playoffs again. To my surprise, even though we're on the road, the game thinks we're going to come out on top. So that would be nice, especially since Grossman is now in the Heisman running, but I think our hopes of making it to an SEC championship are pretty much gone. And how do the Crimson Tide have 299 overall halfbacks? With the tool I use, they should have entered the draft early. And this is just not going to be fun to play against. They're going to run the ball all over us. I mean, it's only taken them 2 minutes to work it down the field, and they're about to get into the end zone, which is really going to put the pressure on us, and I don't see anybody open. Their man-to-man coverage is sticking. We need a route bounce like that one over to triangle, and Staley got open. This game is so important because it decides the rest of our season, but their defense is clamping up. Pierre's going to pick up the loose football, and just when I think I'm really good at pretty much winning in any NCAA football situation, the game does stuff like this. I hop into these super difficult games because I'm confident in my own ability, but maybe not after this. They are destroying me, and I don't want to talk about the fact that going into halftime, it is 28-0. Even when they're passing the ball, I can't seem to stop them, and here on 3rd and 5, they're going to get very close to the marker. So now they're going for it on 4th and inches instead of punting it, and of course our zone wasn't able to stick with Parker. Words cannot describe how ugly this is right now. I'm very afraid they're about to score again, and approaching halftime, we are losing 35-7. I was so confident going into this that we'd just come out on top, but I've been humbled by NCAA Football 14, and that means to have a winning record against Alabama, we have to beat them in Season 5. What's interesting though is because of how difficult our schedule's been, we're only dropping to number 18, and it's not like any of these games are bad losses. It's been the number 2 team, the number 3, the number 6, and we even beat the number 8 one. There's just only so much you can do. I've done so many dynasty sims, and I have never seen the SEC put up numbers like they have this year, but our division was stacked, and even my Wildcats are sitting at 8-2 going into the final 2 weeks. It is insane that with the season that we're having, we are the 6th best team in our conference, and I still think there's a chance that at least 5 of us make the 12-team playoffs. We should easily take down Vanderbilt on the road, which is just going to leave us with playing my Wildcats, so the winner of this game could very well be in, and we're the higher overall team, plus it's a home game, so theoretically this should be easy for us, but they beat us by 3. It's got to be our defense that's the issue, because even with Grossman getting injured, Merklinger filled in very nicely, and it just blows my mind that we're giving up 343 yards and 5 touchdowns to this guy. So far in this rebuild, John Reese has owned Tennessee, but I can't even complain, because I'll admit it's kind of satisfying to see Kentucky do this well. I think they're going to be a playoff team, and Alabama finally gave Auburn a loss, so this is what the SEC championship is looking like, where it looks like the Crimson Tide stay undefeated. I don't think you all realize how nuts that team we faced was, but on the bright side, I think we just got our first All-American of the rebuild, because our kick returner, Arthur Glover, won the best returner in the country, the Jet Award. Now, if you used any bit of logic, that would make him the first team All-NCAA returner, but he's not on that, and he also loses out to this Ball State returner, so we still haven't had a single first team All-American. And with stats like this, Akeem Grossman wasn't even one of the finalists for the Heisman. I'm starting to think that this sim is a little bit biased against Tennessee, because this team was incredible. We had 3 different wide receivers have 11 touchdowns, and as a reward for that, we're playing 7-5 West Virginia. Steve Sarkisian is literally our offensive coordinator, and it's not like we're dealing with many injuries, but I guess this is what makes these 5-year rebuilds so entertaining. And right now it's looking like I'm giving away another copy of the new game. To be real though, that doesn't even feel like much of a punishment, because I'm gonna do it either way, and I know EA's probably gonna give me some codes for some free games, but I'm buying more than that. For all the rebuild challenges that I've lost, I'm gonna be buying those copies to give away, and then also giving away the free free codes. So there's going to be a lot of love going around, but can we talk about this one-handed grab? That was literally insane, but they're going to pick up the 3rd and 16. So we're struggling to close out this easy bowl game. And even with a couple minutes left, they still have a chance. I honestly thought we might win this one by 40, but maybe the SEC wasn't as good as I thought. And here on the 2-point conversion to stay in it, they're going to be a little bit short. Now, if they get the onside kick, it won't matter. And we somehow had a worse season this year than last year. Don't get me wrong, that's still good, and this is probably the best record I've ever had 4 years into a 5-year rebuild, but we still have to complete all 4 of these challenges. And we would have lost like 10 starters if these juniors didn't decide to stay back, but I always knew there was no way Grossman had a 4th year in him. He's a 97 overall as a junior, so obviously he was going to declare. And he was a 1st round pick even if he never got us into the playoffs. As for our recruiting class in the offseason, we're just going to go all in on Reggie Hobbs, but I made sure that this season I just focused on getting the best overalls, so even if the class isn't ranked the highest, it's going to be a really solid one. Of the 2 punters, I'm deciding to move the guy with more kick power over to kicker, and I know our defense was our main issue last season, so I just have to take a look at all these guys, and it looks like as long as we have a good offseason, they would improve enough to where we'd actually have a solid lineup out there on the field. With the way that this tool works, you never know what it's going to give you, and there aren't any crazy jumps like last year with a +7, but I'm happy with the steady climb in overalls. Jake Merklinger's going to finally get his chance to shine, and just look at how good our division is compared to the other one. I'm going to be able to max out my game management coach tree, and that still might not be enough, but we'll just have to see what happens. It looks like all of the ranked teams on our schedule are in our division, so we might have finally gotten a decent draw in the hardest conference, and we're up to a 97 overall, so there's no way that we don't make the playoffs. I mean, as I'm scrolling through some of these other teams, they're down to like an 83 and 84 overall, but that doesn't always matter, especially during sim, and how is Georgia still a 95? The Heisman favorite's also Auburn's quarterback, so we might be in trouble. And I promise, if we lose this first game to Chattanooga, I will just give up right now. Thankfully, the sim engine didn't mess us up too bad, but we have seen some dumb things happen in the past, so I'm just worried even that was a close one. And apparently Merklinger got injured, but our backup came in and played even better. He's not on the injury report though, so he will be back. And I think it's so weird that Tennessee plays West Virginia in real life in 2028. That was our bowl game opponent last year, but I had to put them on the schedule, and of course we are going to beat them. So now I have to start making some tougher decisions, like which conference games I want to play. And it is never fun when you're not favored, but you have to sim. Somehow between these 6 teams in our division, Florida is ranked as the lowest one, and I think I'm going to have to hop into Georgia, Auburn, and Alabama, but the Kentucky game on the road also scares me. If we drop a few of these, we're going to miss the playoffs again, so it's so important that we don't make any mistakes, and I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident in this team, but after this cupcake of an opponent, we're going to start the hard stretch on our schedule, so please just make sure we take care of business. This division is actually nuts right now, but we have to get our revenge versus Georgia, so after what happened last year, let's make sure that we don't choke again. Considering that we have the #1 offense, I don't think we will, but our defense is still struggling quite a bit, so we'll see how this plays out. Our stadium is packed out right now, and it is not often that you take on a #1 team in these dynasties. We're going to force the fumble though. Luke is also able to pick the ball up, and that blitz up the middle was perfect. Smith had no time. This is exactly how we needed to open up our game versus Georgia if we were going to come out on top beating the Bulldogs. And on 3rd and 9, they're going with man-to-man coverage, so I knew that Matthews was going to get open and spin out. What you all are seeing is what I expect out of this team versus every opponent we face, and it is about time that we start to finally have some success, as this is an easy tutty. Peyton Lewis is just way too quick as a running back, but ever since then, every single time that we've scored, they've responded back, and I'm going to try to get Smith a sack here, which might just be enough to force the Bulldogs to take a field goal. It is now 3rd and long, and that slant has caught me off guard, but he isn't in the end zone. So for whatever reason, they're kicking a field goal, and their lack of aggressiveness has really thrown me off. We should also be able to hit this deep post to Staley, and the longer that this game goes on for, the more confident I'm feeling. That was an amazing block by our lineman, and Lewis is going to go down at the 2. So with 4 minutes left, we're about to take a 3-possession lead, and we'd close it out from there, beating the #1 team. This is a result that should move us up to like a top 3 spot, but it didn't, and that's why we also have to take down #4 Auburn. I'm kind of worried about this game though, because we've lost to Kentucky in the last 2 years. We still need to beat Alabama too, so it might make sense to sim this even if we do lose, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm perfectly fine if we drop at least 1 game. We did lose by 3, but as long as we win out, that shouldn't ruin our entire season, and it looks like the Tigers have lost a game, so as long as they drop 1 more, we can still win the SEC. To make the playoffs though, we might have to win out from this point, and it should be possible since Merklinger is #1 in the Heisman running, but I've hopped into this game before and not come out on top. They no longer have their 299 overall halfbacks though, which should make it a lot easier to stop their offense, and it would be amazing if we could start this game with a touchdown, which we're going to get. As for our defense, we could get them off the field in just a few plays, and that is not going to get them a first. So we're in a position where we could be going up 14-0, and we just have to be smart with how we do the rest of this drive against them. I know it's his first year starting, but Jake Merklinger has been a really solid solid quarterback. And I'm curious if this jet sweep play is going to work for a touchdown, which it does. The more stops we get early on, the less of a chance they're going to have at winning this game. We're going to get the sack. And that was a perfect first quarter from us. I'm feeling really confident at the moment, and we just keep on scoring from there so they'd never be able to get it any closer. We've basically done to them what they did to us last season. Lewis gets in with that fighting touchdown, and I think we're going to jump back up to the #1 spot in our conference. That win's also a big deal because we're going to have a winning record versus Alabama, and we just need Auburn to drop one more game, which should happen because their remaining schedule is not easy. We have the tiebreaker over Georgia because we beat them, so we just need them to come out on top, which they do. And assuming we beat 2-6 Missouri, we're going to be one step closer to making the SEC championship, and that's a very tight result. We are in a pretty good position though because all that's left on our schedule is Kentucky, and I mean that with full disrespect to Vanderbilt. They do not worry me at all. They are 1-10. They haven't won a single conference game, and we scored 70. But somehow Merklinger only threw for 2 touchdowns, so I guess we just rushed for a ton instead. Well, going into the final week of the regular season, Kentucky's actually ranked in the top 10, so I don't know what possessed them to be so good in this rebuild, but I really hope that this carries over to real life. I'm also a little bit surprised that Jake Merklinger's not on the Heisman watch anymore, but that just means I'm gonna have to rail my favorite team, and I hate to do this to them with my poster sitting in the background, but we're gonna have to go into Kroger Field and ruin their playoff hopes. This is gonna be difficult to do, not because I don't think this roster can take down the Wildcats, but because I hate Tennessee almost more than I hate Louisville, and we have already thrown an interception to them. I've held off on doing this rebuild for like 2 years now, and now I have to make sure that Tennessee's able to take down Kentucky, but we are not gonna get the safety, and that is gonna be a huge run instead. If you're wondering why I'm a Kentucky fan, it's because I lived there my whole life before I ended up moving to Florida this last year, and it looks like we're gonna get the pick, so Hardy could come away with a nice low play for us, but it is painful to do this to my team. They're probably going to be one of the first teams I rebuild on the new game though, and I will say this that makes Kentucky fans happy. When I played the game early, the new jerseys look sick, but I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to say that now. I don't care, I think that's worth leaking, and we're going to open up this game with the first touchdown on this play. It wasn't a passing one like we needed with Merklinger though, so there's no chance he wins the Heisman. He's trying to get a big play on this one, but I just don't think that we're going to score enough points for it to matter, and that coverage is clamping. We were also short of the end zone, which means I'm going to try to pass it one final time, but that didn't work either, so now I just have to hand it off so we can score. I don't think it should be a shock that I'm having no issues winning games with this team. It is really good, but I thought my Wildcats would put up a little bit better of a fight, and I'm kind of hoping that they still sneak into the playoffs. I doubt it's going to happen since they dropped down to 8-4, and we still haven't clinched a first round bye, but if any of those top 3 teams lose their conference championship game, we would, and fortunately we did get our wish with California losing to the Tar Heels. Now all that's left for us is playing against Texas and winning an SEC championship, which would knock off the 4th challenge in this video, and it also helps that their starting quarterback's injured. I think the thing we're going to struggle with though is the All-Americans, because ever since I started adding that to the challenges list, I've barely completed it, and that one alone might be responsible for me spending like $500 on copies of NCAA Football 25 for you all. Jake Merlinger just broke Peyton Manning's record with that pass too, so one of the best quarterbacks of all time is no longer in Tennessee's books, and because I grew up in Kentucky near Indianapolis, I'm a Colts fan too, so this entire video has just been painful. That's also an interception. We are losing to Texas, by the way. We are in trouble. So maybe winning a national championship isn't a freebie either, and here on 3rd and 10, we just have to make the tackle. Now we're getting the ball back with time in the half still, and Glover won the Jet Award last season, so he should be very quick and able to pull off an amazing return here. It is that back juke that always looks so good in this game, and there's just 2 guys to beat, but we couldn't do it, so now we have to find a way to get in here, and that's a dart. Since we missed an extra point, I also have to go for this 2-point conversion, and going into the half, now the game's tied up. It would remain that way throughout the entire second half. It is still all tied up with a few minutes left, and I am going for the deep bomb to our tight end, but that didn't work, so I should probably stop taking deep shots, step up in the pocket here, and that is an amazing throw. From this point, we're probably just going to settle for a field goal and then win this game. We can pick up a few more yards on the ground. That is a great move too, but there's no reason for us to score a touchdown and then give the Longhorns a chance. All we have to do now is just put this one down the middle, and I'm starting to get some confidence for the first time in this rebuild. It could all be ruined in half a second when we see the All-Americans list, but there's a few guys on this roster that deserve to make it, and there is the SEC trophy that we have been fighting for 5 years. Our quarterback would even jump back into the Heisman race, but he wouldn't win it, and there were many different award winners on this team, but my biggest concern was if we'd get 3 All-Americans or not, and 3 offensive linemen is already going to do the trick, plus Merklinger. We'd also have another 3 on defense, so I've never had this much success with All-Americans, but that means the only challenge left is winning a national championship, and you know the ranking system on this game is broken when Air Force is getting put in the 4th 4 seed spot over us. That just means we have to play an extra playoff game with the Maxwell and O'Brien winner. And when you combine those stats with these rushing yards on the ground, I'm really surprised he didn't win the Heisman. As for our receivers, the best one was definitely John Grant with 109 receptions, and our center won both the Remington and the Outland Award. Bowl season is when things really get serious though. And how did we end up having to play against Georgia again? We just can't escape having to face the Bulldogs. But at least we get to host this first round playoff game and we'll see what happens. They'd end up scoring the first points and it's been a challenge to move it against them, but we're in a position where we could tie it up here in the second quarter and that takes us to the 4. There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to just run this in with Lewis, but he got stopped. So we have to give him one more chance to slide it in. And I wish he was better at just penetrating the hole. I feel like I probably have to say pause after saying all of that, but I'd rather be able to stop the Bulldogs at least from getting a touchdown here, and it looks like that's gonna be dropped. We had the interception in our hands, and because our boys can't catch, it is now 3rd and goal where I'm watching the left side of the field, and we did a pretty good job holding that. We might as well try to bomb their defense with a little bit of time left in the half anyway. I always go for these. It normally doesn't pay off, but Matthews is gonna come away with the football, and that is why I do that. With our coordinator boost, he has 93 speed, but I just realized we have a guy with 99 speed, and he's gotta be our slot. Steve Sarkisian becoming our offensive coordinator might be the best thing that could have happened here, because now our slot receiver's just gonna burn by defenses. And how did I not realize Antoine Briggs was that quick? Sometimes I just don't see certain things on the roster until it's later in the rebuild, and we're trying our best to maintain our 11-point lead, but even after taking a holding penalty, I think Georgia's gonna get in field goal range here. So going into the 4th quarter, we're only up by a possession. It's gonna be very hard to run down the rest of the clock without them getting the ball back, but I am gonna go for this deep post, and Briggs is gonna drop it. So that didn't get open the way I thought it might, but they still have to work it all the way down the field against us. Sure enough, they would, but I'm gonna try to get the sack, and that alone might win us this game single-handedly. It is now 3rd and goal. There's not much that Georgia can do here. They're just taking their check down inbounds. We gotta hit them short, and I'm even burning a timeout to set up our defense. It's gonna be super embarrassing if they then pick up 10 yards here, but I feel like we have everything on lock. And why does Georgia keep scoring with 6 seconds left against us? They still have to get the 2-point conversion to send it to OT, and I'm not happy about the position that puts us in, but Glover could actually return this kick. 25 is the only player in the vicinity of catching him. And of course, we now have to start on offense, so I have to be very careful that we don't turn the ball over. Dropping that pass is not helpful, and I probably should have been running here, but there's a lot on the line, and we have 2 chances to stop them. It's also cute to see Tennessee's mascot stealing stuff that Kentucky's does, and we just have to hold the Bulldogs here, but that corner route got filthy open against us. It blows my mind that it's going to come down to this, but it's also my fault for not putting it away earlier on, and that is going to be caught. I'm also a little bit worried because sometimes overtime on NCAA Football 14 glitches out, so there's a chance that we never see the ball again in this game and Georgia scores. If we're able to get in again, I'm going to have to go for the 2-point conversion and the win, because the more overtime periods that we go through, the greater chance that something glitches out in the game, and I'd much rather end the season off of my mistake instead of a glitch. Just 3 more plays to reach the end zone, and this is going to get us nothing. So it might be time to use Marklinger's legs, and I'm going to step up, but they were prepared for it. I can't remember the last time I lost a 5-year rebuild, but there's a chance that it happens here, and please hold on. Okay, that's the first thing that we needed to happen. Now we have the 2-pointer, and I've always liked the option of taking the zig or the slant on the right side of the field, but they boxed it up nicely and we catch it. That was fit into the tiniest of windows. But Tennessee fans, your rebuild has stayed alive, and if we can beat them, we can probably beat anybody. Air Force is literally a 75 overall team, and their best running back is injured, while we really haven't had to deal with any. I don't see how they could put up a good fight against us, but I guess we're about to find out if they can or not. And once the floodgates open, I don't think it's going to get any better for them. We're already going to score our first touchdown, and all they've been able to respond back with so far is a field goal. They would hold us to 1 here though, keeping it a 1-possession game, which is pretty respectable. And now we need our defense to just keep doing their job. One thing I will miss on College Football 25 is all of these military schools always doing well, because eventually we always end up pulling away, and by the end of this game, they'd only scored 6 points. There just wasn't much exciting stuff about it. We're going to continue to get to the end zone, and that's going to put us on to the semifinals. Now we have to face off against undefeated Wisconsin, and the guy that stole the Heisman Trophy from Jake Merklinger. But just looking at his stats, they definitely weren't better than our quarterbacks, and their team overall isn't either, so we should be fine. If Tennessee is ever going to win another championship, this is the only time that it's going to be possible for that to happen. At least that's what I'd like to think, and we should be getting the first touchdown. Unfortunately, I did make the wrong read there, so now we have to pick it up through the air, but we have a solid receiving core that can hold on to the football, so it's really going to be on our defense to keep holding this Heisman winning quarterback to field goals, and I am not happy with the fact that they just got in there. Now we're going for the deep crosser on 3rd and 10, which would eventually lead to a touchdown, but by the 3rd quarter, we're still trailing by 3 points to the Badgers, so we've really got to step things up, and it's like every time we score a touchdown, they respond back immediately, so at the end of the 3rd quarter, we're still down. I have a feeling that the entire 4th quarter is going to be like this too, so we can't be having incomplete incomplete passes like that. And this has truly been a battle to see who is the best quarterback in the country. That's going to be dropped though. And that would have been the greatest catch I have ever seen on this game if we brought it in. This would have 100% been the #1 play on SportsCenter top 10. But now I'm worried that we could be held to a field goal, and that's good. Braylon Staley broke the press, getting open in the end zone. And we haven't been able to stop them yet, but it's a halfback screen on 3rd down, so I'm hoping we're able to get over to it, but we don't. I've been trying to rely on our defense throughout this entire game, but they just can't make a play. And it would make sense for them to run it here, but they actually decided to pass, and it seems like something's eventually going to get open. 3rd and 3 now. It is a wide receiver screen underneath, but they break the tackle. And I am so sick of playing games in the rain. Surely they're about to run the ball though, coming out in goal line here. So run committing continues to work for us. Now they're probably going to have to pass the ball, and we are ready for that too. Make sure we keep knocking him back. Please just go down. Well, I can't believe what I'm seeing right here, but Wisconsin just decided to kick a field goal. I guess they still have all 3 of their timeouts remaining, but they pretty much just signed up to lose. With 1 first down, this one is over, and their defense hasn't been great. So I think we're going to be able to get it on the next 2 plays, and that's what we needed. At least we're finally headed to the championship, where we're taking on undefeated Colorado, and Deion Sanders actually fixed the Buffaloes. They even have the #1 defense in the country, but I'd be pretty salty if I lost here, and I'm just hoping I can knock off the final challenge. It would have been funny if we lost to Georgia, but at this point, we have probably just made it way too far. That's a great throw, and John Grant has been so underrated for us. We are already on pace to get off to an incredible start. They did block really well there, but threw it to us too. So I can already tell that they're gonna struggle, and it looks like the deep post got behind the safety, but they picked it. As this game goes on, we keep getting stops, or they do, but we are gonna make up for our mistakes. And why did we not just drag a foot there? There's been quite a few frustrating things that have happened so far, but at the end of the day, we're still up 10-0 in the championship, and their offense has shown me nothing that has impressed me so far in this one. We just gotta hold them here, but there's a flag, and of course they're hitting us with a penalty that's gonna get them a first. Is it valid? I don't know, but I would say probably so. He went airborne after that ball was out of his hands, which would lead to their first touchdown of the day, so now we just have to try to bomb them, and they're all over it. I could probably take things a lot slower than I have in this game, but I always like to go for highlight plays in the final one of a rebuild, and that might be the reason that going into the half we're losing to Colorado. We aren't going to get the pick here, so they're just going to keep on driving against us, and that was bound to happen. Even with a few minutes left, we still haven't been able to pull away in this game, but I think we could have our deep post on this play. So my hope is that we can just take a lead on this drive, since there's really not that much time left. And I wish I could tell you why I've struggled so much in some of these games in these rebuilds. Normally I don't have issues. We're definitely not going to be able to run out the rest of the clock before we score though, so that means we do have to lean on our defense one final time. And I definitely just gave their quarterback a concussion. Look at his hand after he took that hit. His head starts bobbling around all weird. He is holding it in pain, and he is still out there on the field taking snaps. That is another level of dedication. We have to keep pounding him until we get the result that we're looking for though, and it looks like our safety is going to make a play on that football. We are going to win the national championship, at least as long as we don't take a safety. I didn't realize we went down at the 1. We should be good here. They only have another timeout left, and it is over. Tennessee has won a national championship. We might even end it with one more touchdown run. That would be super fitting, and it was a hard time to complete this rebuild. I'm not going to lie. There were moments where I didn't think we were going to make it happen, even though I felt like I built a really good roster throughout the entire thing. These list of challenges is always what gets me super nervous, but we knocked them all off, and you all are just going to have to root for me to fail another rebuild for more giveaway copies. Now, unless this video does insane numbers, I don't want to have to use Tennessee in the new game, but if you do want to see it, hit the like button. And honestly, this might be the most players that I've ever put into the NFL with a rebuild. I'm going to continue to scroll, and you're just going to see more and more guys. But that wraps this one up, and there's only so many more NCAA Football 14 rebuilds I'm going to do in the next couple of months.